I'm Louis Black, beloved comedian. Really? And the only Daily Show employee who works less than Jon Stewart.
Have you ever tried to explain to someone what's going on in the world and realized you look like a crazy person talking to yourself in line for coffee? That's how comedians like Louis Black feel, except instead of a line, they have a microphone. And instead of coffee, they have news about Donald Trump. Louis isn't just a comedian. He's a man who loses his voice.
What? There's no such thing as space? Then where do we keep sending our monkeys? I was told my tax dollars were going to murdering monkeys in space. And now you're telling me they're just faking it?
Louis isn't just a comedian. He's a man who loses his voice, explaining why everything around him is going to hell. And he does it with such frenzied charm that you laugh even when he's yelling at you. Today, we'll figure out why even an experienced satirist who's been through Bush and Obama started to seriously wonder when he encountered Trump. Is this even a parody, or is it already reality?
Donald Trump will be at this dais soon.
No.
May 27th.
I'll see you.
Welcome to an era where news sounds like stand-up comedy, and stand-up comedy sounds like a chronicle of the end of the world. Louis Black is the kind of guy who looks like he's had a headache for 30 years because of everything that's going on around him. If you've ever seen someone literally shaking with rage while ranting about taxes, religion, or the stupidity of politicians, it was probably him. Or someone who was trying to be like him but couldn't quite get the hang of it. Black has a unique style.
Since Trump's victory, half the country is excited and the other half is still at home in the fetal position.
He's not just angry. He's professionally angry. He's the kind of stand-up comedian who doesn't tell jokes. He stages full-blown verbal riots. It seems like every performance is either a nervous breakdown or public therapy. Only instead of tears, there's sarcasm. Instead of snot, there's profanity. And instead of hugs, there's a well-delivered rant about how absurd everything is.
Look out, everyone! The libs are pissed and they're coming for Grandma's fine china. Democrats can't even get mad correctly. Conservatives storm the Capitol. Meanwhile, Democrats are like, are these crowbars ethically sourced?
His career, to put it mildly, has been anything but dull. Stand-up is his foundation, but he is also an actor and a frequent guest on The Daily Show, where his trademark persona as an angry old man who has had enough perfectly fits the already hysterical atmosphere of American news. He even became known as an unofficial political commentator. Because who else could explain the madness of what was happening better than a man who had almost lost an eye from it?
I have seen you angry through 4 presidential administrations. Is there anything unique about your present level of anger with the Trump administration?
Black's main thing is that he's always hated authority. Any kind. Republicans, Democrats, all the same to him. He'd trash everyone because, in his opinion, they're all about as good as a broken bone and diarrhea at the same time. But then Trump came along, and something went very wrong, because even someone who was used to seeing politics as a circus realized that something had changed, that it wasn't funny anymore. And that's an important point, because if Louis Black stops laughing, it means things are bad. When Trump became president, satirists like Louis Black had to look at their scripts and think, why am I even writing this when he's doing it all for me? Because it suddenly became clear that reality had become so absurd that parody simply lost its meaning. You want to come up with a joke about Trump, but he's already said it in all seriousness in front of the cameras. And he added some wild metaphor that no comedian would dare use, simply for fear of being committed to a psychiatric hospital.
They did.
Oh,
really?
I think that's, and that's the thing I think that is really one of the what people are missing the point on is he is an enabler to asshole.
Black said it straight. We live at the intersection of satire and reality. The only problem is that the cars at this intersection are running red lights. The traffic cops are dancing on the hoods. And somewhere on the side of the road, Trump is holding a press conference explaining why hurricanes can be stopped with nuclear bombs. So sit there and joke about it. He complained that it was impossible to outdo him. How, one wonders, can you make a joke about Trump's press conference when it already looks like a parody of itself? It's like you turn on the TV and immediately get the full setup, the punchline, and the applause. No thanks.
I did a lot of hallucinogens when I was younger in order to prepare me for any eventual reality. And I never saw this one coming.
Everything that used to be hyperbole, imagine a president who was now literally news. Satirists found themselves trapped. They were used to exaggerating, to taking things to absurd extremes. But now, reality was doing it for them, and doing it so brazenly that all they could do was sit there with their mouths open and say, "Okay, I give up." So Lewis Black, the old master of fierce hyperbole, found himself in a new reality where hyperbole is just the fifth news story of the day. And that was the main crisis of Trump's satire. It simply couldn't keep up with life.
I feel like we're living in fictional times. If this was in a book, you go, fuck, this is a great book. Who could imagine the people that are around him, who could imagine those as characters? I find it hard. I look at Kellyanne Conway, but is she real? I'm not sure.
Lewis Black didn't hold back when it came to Trump and his team. He loved his job so much that he approached every figure in the White House as if they were characters ripe for satirical dissection. And when Black started dissecting Trump, it was like watching a masterful craftsman hammer a nail into a box of dynamite. So let's focus on how Black turned every member of this administration into a target for his sharp jokes. The first place to start is, of course, Trump himself. For Black, Trump was almost like a joke in himself. When a president who can't make a normal statement comes in and starts talking about how he's going to fix everything, Black couldn't pass it up. For example, when Trump started talking about climate issues, Black parodied him in this style. "Oh yeah, sure, if I were president, I'd just say, hey guys, let's plant some trees. We're not stupid, are we?" And you're like, wait, is that really his plan? The whole point of his plan is like trying to stop a hurricane with boxing gloves.
See, this is the thing. There should be a constitutional amendment that during the summer, unless it's really important, the president has to shut up.
Black strongly mocked Trump's rhetoric itself because he spoke as if each of his tweets was not just news, but a fragment of a script for a comedy show. Black often brought up the moment when Trump declared that our military is the strongest, adding sarcastically, "And we're building the tallest wall ever. It'll be so tall that even planes won't be able to fly over it." Or, for example, when Trump made a statement that we will defeat the virus, Black also played it off as the most helpless attempt to win, adding, "Sure, we'll defeat it, but first, we need to buy a few million mushroom clouds just in case they help." Lewis Black often repeats that his anger is not the result of personal animosity, but a consequence of what is happening in the world. There is no place for hatred in his monologues. It is more of an artistic tool through which he tries to convey to us what is going on. His anger is not some kind of personal outburst of emotion, but a vivid and expressive means of making us think about how absurd the system is and how often its mechanisms lead to disaster.
We've done something with these two political parties that really is unbelievable. No other country has done it. No other country. We used to have parties that argue ideas. Not anymore. Now we have two separate political parties that actually exist in two totally different regions.
When Black screams into the microphone, when his eyes flash with rage, it doesn't mean he hates anyone personally. He's not out to destroy the lives of those who happen to be the target of his criticism. That's not his goal. His goal is to raise awareness of how the political system, including its leaders and structures, can be incompetent and absurd. It's important to him that we all understand that problems need to be solved, not ignored. And his anger is a way to draw attention to these problems so that we all realize how important they are.
What better cure for an election hangover than half a decade of pina coladas and freeze-dried scallops? Trump's gonna slash Medicaid just in time for me to get super herpes from a Swiss widow.
When Black talks about the political system or rulers, he always emphasizes that he is not against people, but against the very structure of power. There is no room for personal animosity in his views. Trump, Conway, Carson, Bannon, these are not just bad people to Black. They are people who do a poor job, run the country without even trying to understand what they are doing, which leads to total incompetence. This is an absurdity that Black cannot accept. His anger is not directed at people as such, but at their actions and the consequences of those actions. For him, satirical attacks are not a way to insult, but a way to make us stop, think, and analyze. He wants us to ask ourselves questions like, why do we let these people run the country? Or how can they not understand their own responsibilities? It's not an attack on individuals, but on the system that creates the absurd situations he encounters in his satire.
Thomas Jefferson was right when he famously said presidential elections suck ass. Hell, I have to stay drunk from April to November just to get through it, which is 2 weeks longer than I'm normally drunk. But this election sucks extra ass.
All Black does is try to bring viewers back to reality, make them realize the scale of the problem, and think about what we can do to change it. His art of satire isn't just laughter for laughter's sake. It's a tool for awareness and critical thinking that he uses to help us finally understand that even if we can't change the system right now, it's important to at least see its weaknesses. And what does Trump himself think about this? Trump, as we know, does not like to be criticized, especially by comedians and the media. His relationship with satire has always been tense. He is clearly not thrilled about being ridiculed. He has repeatedly called satire fake news or accused it of being unfair and distorted. Trump is not a fan of people who make him look foolish because, in his opinion, anything that does not confirm his own opinion is a lie. Who needs objective coverage of events when you can just say it's all made up? This is especially true of Louis Black. Black is like a red rag to a bull for him. Trump once commented on his performances with obvious displeasure. Oh, he's just yelling because he needs attention. Who even listens to him? The funny thing is that Trump doesn't seem to realize that he himself has become the object of that attention. Comedians don't just yell for no reason, they react to absurd events, and Black in particular takes on the role of chewing up this absurdity and serving it up as loud satire. And yes, Black may shout on stage, but someone has to loudly declare that something completely ridiculous is happening, so that we all understand that this should not be the norm.
That 13% of potential voters would prefer to have a giant meteor crash into the earth and destroy civilization than to see either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in the White House.
And this is where irony comes into play. Trump is one of the most unpredictable presidents imaginable. His actions and statements are sometimes so absurd that even the most restrained satirist cannot convey the full absurdity without hyperbole. Satirists like Black portray Trump so exaggeratedly that sometimes Trump himself cannot tell where reality ends and sarcasm begins. But despite all his sharpness, Black always emphasizes that his jokes are just an amplification of what Trump himself actually does. For example, when Trump says something ridiculous about climate or politics, Black might add a couple of details to make it even more vivid and memorable, but the essence remains the same.
So, when I say that if you vote for Donald Trump, you're going to go to hell,
Right.
just because I said it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
So who is the real joker here? Trump may think that Black is just shouting for attention, but perhaps he himself is the one who is actually the main character in all these satirical shows. After all, when reality becomes so absurd that even comedians can't make it funnier, the president himself becomes a walking meme. Comedians like Louis Black play a much more important role than it might seem at first glance. They don't just make us laugh, they help society stop and think about what's going on around us. Satire, as Black does it, isn't just jokes. It's a way to bring order to chaos and make us think about the reality we live in. It can be witty, provocative, and even loud. But it is through these loud statements and exaggerations that we see the world differently. Even if you disagree with what Black says, it is important to recognize that his perspective on the situation opens up new perspectives for us. He shows us how to look at problems from a different angle, and perhaps this will help us find solutions or at least understand what exactly is wrong. After all, satirists are not just people who criticize for the sake of criticism, but those who, through criticism, try to make the world a little more meaningful and understandable.
when you go into, work on this, we show it later, and this is, live to tape, pixelate my face and make my voice fake, because I don't want that big baby yelling at me.